coverage.
More experience.
More stats.
And that's final.
ET Final Score is brought to you by Ashley Furniture.
Hello and welcome to the ETFinalScore.com weekend high school football preview show. Hi, I'm Phil Hicks, and today I will be visiting with some of our experienced Tyler Morning Telegraph reporters on the high school football season. We'll be talking about last week's results and what's ahead for this week. But first, I want to remind you how excited we are to be our partners with CBS 19 and East Texas Radio Group. We're partnering together to bring you the best in high school football coverage. Be sure and check ETFinalScore.com and TylerPaper.com to keep up with your kids and your community. First, I have Harold Wilson here visiting today. He covers John Tyler High School, which is ranked number 1 in Class 4A. First, we want to talk about last week's game against the Lufkin Panthers. First, welcome, Harold.
Oh, thanks.
How did last week's game against Lufkin reveal about John Tyler?
Well, it revealed a couple of key things. You know, going back to last year's season opener, which John Tyler lost by 3 points to Lufkin. They wore down in that game, and, you know, the depth, you know, kind of reared its head. You know, it raised doubts about, you know, could they beat a physical team, and could they hold up for 4 quarters, and also could they start out fast. All throughout last year, it seemed like they were playing catch-up, but last week you saw John Tyler hold up all 4 quarters. You saw him hold up against a physical football team, and you saw that explosiveness. I mean, just take any simple play and they could go to the house. They scored all 5 touchdowns from 30 yards or more, so they proved they could beat a big 5A team. They proved they could hold up for 4 quarters, and they proved they were one of the more explosive teams in the state.
Very good. Does that combination of about this team, does that make John Tyler deserving of the number 1 ranking they received in the AP and Texas Football Magazine poll?
Well, you know, a lot of people, myself included, thought they should have started the season number 1. It's interesting. They have a little sign in the field house, and it says, you know, number 1, Denton Geyer, number 2, Cedar Park, number 3, John Tyler, no respect. So they thought they should have been number 1. You know, that was something they were looking at, even though teams downplayed that. They knew that what they were bringing back, 17 returning starters from a state semifinalist, a team that 3 years ago made it to the quarterfinals in 5A, state semifinals last year in 4A, and the year before to the state quarterfinals in 4A, and no other team in 4A right now has that pedigree with Lake Travis and that 5A. So John Tyler at this point right now, it's hard to argue against them being number 1.
Very good. Now on to this week. John Tyler plays Lancaster, and I know they're known for their track,
yes.
girls track
Yes.
and boys track.
Yep.
But how did the Lions and Lancaster match up this week?
Well, just from that, what you spoke of, speed, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this in Class 4. The Lancaster boys, they have been in the girls' shadows, but they won state and track last year too, and some of those guys play for the football team. It's probably the fastest team John Tyler's going to see on the 4A level this year. So knowing that a team can test them, maybe slow down the Fred Rosses and the Reggie Gibson, that's going to be a test within itself. But Lancaster's not just speed. They've got an elusive quarterback. They've got one of the better defensive ends in the state of Texas. But it's hard to think that they've got the whole array of talent that John Tyler has. But it does seem like it's going to be an intriguing matchup.
Very good. Now we'll switch to college. Now I know you're a Texas State Bobcat.
Yes.
How about those Bobcats?
This is about as proud as I've been, you know, seeing them step up to the highest level of Division I, beat Houston, a team that last year was a top 10 team in the nation. It's just really sent a lot of excitement around Bobcat country, and hopefully it gets better this week against Tech.
Yeah, how about the Tech this week? I know maybe you and Chris Perry, one of our other writers, had a little bet going on about this.
Yeah, I think whichever one of our schools loses, we're going to have to wear the other school's shirt, polo shirt, to this very show next week. So I don't want to wear a Texas Tech shirt next week, so hopefully the Bobcats can keep this going. It's going to be a tall task going up against another big-time Division I school. First home game in the renovated Bobcat Stadium. Hopefully they can keep it going.
Very good. Thanks for visiting with us, Harold.
All right, thanks.
Now we're going to visit with Chris Perry. He is the beat writer for Robbie Lee High School. Okay, welcome, Chris. Glad you're here to visit with us today. Now, last week, Robbie Lee played a very exciting game against Sulphur Springs, but they came up short. The defense came and gave up a lot of passing yards last week. What did they have to do to shore that up?
Well, I was talking to Coach Piskey today, and Coach Piskey
they have stressed tackling. They missed 30-plus tackles last week, which means they were in the right position. They just didn't make the play. And, of course, there's a reason for that. I mean, they had 5 guys that were playing linebacker for the first time ever. A lot of guys have come over from offense. Some guys have just changed positions. So it's going to be a learning process throughout the season. And it doesn't get any easier when you have the Lufkin Panthers now next, and they're probably still not very happy after getting beat by JT last week.
That's true. Now, we know Sulphur Springs is a good 4A team, and they got an outstanding offense. But now the Red Raiders are going to Lufkin. And how about that atmosphere? They're going to be dedicating John Outlaw Field, as I understand. That's going into a tough environment before the dedication of that field.
Yeah, it's tough anyway. I mean, it's always tough to go to Lufkin. It's you know as well as I do. The visiting fans barely have anywhere to sit. They give you a strip down the middle where they have both sides of their crowd. It is all purple as far as the eye can see. The team is razzed as they come in the field, on the field, and off the field. Now let's add in the fact that they're dedicating their field to their late legendary head coach. So that the Lufkin Panthers are going to just be amped up. They're going to be wanting to show their fans, their town, and their new coaching staff that last week was not how things are going to be, and let's get back to what they usually do, which is win at home. They haven't lost a game at home in almost 2 or 3 years, and that's what Robert E. Lee has to face this year. Not only that, but you've got a new coaching staff in Lee, and they're trying to get things going. It's going to be a very big test for the Red Raiders.
Now, very positive last week was the running game of Lee. I thought they were very impressive, the offensive line and the running back. Tell us about the running game.
They did fantastic. LaQuintus Wallace with 20 carries from over 140 yards. Marcus White contributed. And I thought they passed the ball well too, off the running game, off play action. And Riley Poster did a great job of finding guys in the middle of the field, beating zone coverages when they have it, taking what they gave them, and then also making plays on 3rd and long. And that's the kind of thing they're going to have to do again, because Lufkin is going to challenge that offense to try to produce for another week.
Very good. Now we're going to talk a little about the college game. You're a Texas Tech Red Raider, and Harold Wilson is a Texas State Bobcat. Now they play this week in San Marcos. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think Harold's going to look great in red, white, and black, personally. I think he's going to look fantastic next week wearing a Texas Tech shirt. Now, Texas State surprised a lot of people by beating Houston. And I think that only makes it that much more difficult for them to beat Tech because now Tech's really not going to overlook them. They weren't going to overlook them anyway based on how difficult their season was last year. But I think Tech is going to come to Texas State looking to try to go 2-0. I'm looking forward to a very spirited ball game, and hopefully the Red Raiders come out on top.
Very good, Chris. Thanks for visiting with us today. Now next we'll have Shane Stark, who covers the East Texas area. Hey Shane, welcome to the ETFinalScore.com high school preview show, and we're going to ask you a little question about the East Texas area. I know the big game is Lake Tyler rivals Chapel Hill and White House play at Rose Stadium. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm really excited about it. I know a lot of people are excited about it based on last year's game. The amount of offense those two teams generated at Rose Stadium is probably one of the best games of the year. A lot of people do consider it the best game of the year. I think tomorrow night's going to be kind of an interesting game because we got Chapel Hill coming off its first loss in over a year, and then White House coming off a big win that they scored over Hallsville. So what I'm looking forward to seeing is how Chapel Hill bounces back with all its new players. Second game, under the Friday night lights. Apparently had a lot of mistakes last week, and that cost them some points. Then White House, I'm also looking to see how their defense, if it shows up again like it did against Hallsville, and also if it's Patrick Mahomes with a hot hand again tomorrow night like he had last week, or if Ryan Cheatham gets in there and plays a little quarterback as well, throws for a lot of yards. So should be a really interesting game.
Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, I covered his father back in high school, and I know he's a good athlete. And District 16 4A has some great quarterback debuts last week. Jashad Johnson of Lindale, Carter McCowan of Jacksonville, and of course Patrick. So what are your thoughts on that great QB crop?
Shows that there's a lot of interesting things to be to unfold this year because Mahomes threw for 250 yards. McCown, depends on what stats you read, he threw for 350 or 370, and then Johnson rushed for 150 yards. So those three quarterbacks, and then complement with Greg Ward at John Tyler, not to leave any other quarterbacks out. I think this district has a really good chance to have good quarterback play this year, kind of like a Big 12 kind of district, I guess.
It does sound like so fans would see a good game no matter where they go with these guys.
Yeah. I mean, pick your poison. Either you have quarterbacks who can run or quarterbacks who can throw, but they're going to pick up big yards this year.
Entertaining East Texas games. What else do you see on the schedule this week for East Texas?
Well, I know a game that really jumps out to me, and I know I've been high on these guys, since the season is Palestine. They play against Jacksonville this week, which obviously Jacksonville showed that they're a force to be reckoned with after upsetting then Class 3 third-ranked Carthage. Palestine, which is a team that a lot of people are thinking big things of for this year. They played really hard against a state-ranked Waco La Vega team that they could have beaten, but they did a little risk take there in overtime and lost by 1 point. I'd like to see where these two teams are at, and we'll find out tomorrow night.
All right, Shane, thanks for visiting with us today. And next up, we're going to have Travis Yosting, who covers the private schools and TAPS teams in the area. Hello, Travis. How are you today?
Great.
Okay. Thanks for visiting with us. I want to ask you a few things about the TAPS schools this week. Mm-hmm. Which TAPS schools impressed the most over the first weekend?
I think definitely it was Brook Hill. Coming off the state championship, they lost 18 seniors. They were moving up to a new district. There are kind of some questions, how are they going to perform? But they went out and they really shut down a talented Frankston team, 34-0, and it was definitely the most impressive performance.
Very good. And now, last week, 2 coaches made their debut in TAPS. How'd that go?
Well, Kobe Gibson at Gorman, he looked pretty good. The Crusaders came out, got a very nice victory, 34-7 over Beckville. The offense looked much improved. They were less predictable. They spread the ball around and really just looked completely different from last year, and they look like they're going to be a strong unit this year. All Saints, they didn't do quite as well. They had some turnovers that hurt them, but talking to Coach Mike Hall after his first game at All Saints, he said they're fixable mistakes, and they look to continue to improve throughout the year.
And then one final question. Now we're getting ready for the second week. What game has you most excited this week?
I think it's got to be Grace and Mineola. Those two played a great game last year at Mineola. The Yellow Jackets have a great linebacker, running back in Dak Shaw. He's a TCU commit, and he's going to be got to be a focus for Grace. And the entire just the atmosphere is going to be great because Mineola's always got a good crowd there. And last year they played at the same venue, and it's going to be a great game between those two.
Thanks very much, Travis. Be sure and tune in each Friday on the ETFinalScore.com TV show, and we'll recap this week's games and look forward to next week. Thanks a lot.